Greetings! Thank you for lending an ear to the Voice of the Times for Wednesday, December 1, 2021. For today's editorial, Galvez is wrong on business group's booster plan. The vaccine czar has spoken. In spite of all logic and practicality, private enterprises that obtain their own supplies of vaccines must not use any of the surplus doses to give booster shots to their employees, even if it means those vaccines will otherwise go to waste. National Task Force Against COVID-19 or NTF Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., who is also the vaccine czar, responsible for managing the government's vaccination drive, thumbed down a proposal presented last week by 26 business groups to use surplus vaccine doses obtained by private enterprises for booster shots for their employees and family members. Galvez's reasoning for rejecting the request was that the government has a moral and mandatory obligation to complete the vaccinations for the 70 million people who have not yet received even a first dose. The companies agreed to follow the vaccine priorities of the government when they signed the tripartite agreements with the government and pharmaceutical firms to procure the vaccines, Galvez added. So far, about 43.9 million Filipinos have been fully vaccinated. Despite what Galvez said, the government is not targeting all 110 million plus of the country's population, but 70% or about 77 million by the end of 2021. Thus, it has achieved about 57% of its goal with about 1 month to go. As of last week, the NTF reported it had a stockpile of 57.6 million vaccine doses, which is about 8.6 million doses short of what the government would need to reach its vaccination goal. According to a report by the Philippine News Agency on Monday, however, approximately 46 million doses of vaccines are expected to be delivered to the country this month. If the government can distribute them properly, this would cover the rest of the 77 million people targeted by the government plus 18 million more, or provide 36 million booster shots for those already vaccinated. According to government policy, rather than use surplus vaccine doses, private companies with their own vaccine supplies nearing their expiration date could instead loan these to the government and be repaid with fresh replacement supplies later. It is worth noting that the highest number of vaccine shots the government has managed to give in a single day so far is about 1 million. The daily average has been closer to half of that. Even under a best case scenario, it would still take close to 2 months for the government to use up its existing supply of vaccines without taking into account the expected new deliveries. It is also worth noting that the private business's request that Galvez is quibbling about involves a small fraction of the total vaccine supply the country has received of the 138.8 million vaccine doses delivered as of last week. Only 7.4 million were purchased by private companies, while 91 million were purchased by the government, and about 40.4 million were donated to the government. Early in the government's vaccine drive, when supplies were scarce, it made sense to carefully prioritize their distribution. However, supply is no longer an issue. The only reason the government has not yet met its moral and mandatory obligation is its own inefficiency in distributing vaccines. At this point, the idea of priority groups can and should be tossed out, and any plan that can distribute vaccines quickly should be embraced. Private companies which took the initiative and used their own resources to protect their own people and their dependents, and in doing so, relieve the government of at least a small part of its responsibility, are now being punished for effective management. Galvez's rejection of their request was irresponsible and short-sighted, as it was not based on actual need or any realistic appreciation of the current situation. Even before the appearance of the new Omicron variant of the coronavirus, it was acknowledged that booster shots are important added protection against COVID-19. Private companies whose business activities are vital to the country's overall economic recovery should be permitted to use their own surplus vaccines to ensure that their workers will be able to continue working and that their dependents are protected. And that's the editorial for Wednesday, December 1, 2021. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to its digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and listen to the Voice of the Times.